All right, our last speaker for the day is Robin Terry. Robin Terry is the grandniece of Berry Gordy Jr. And Berry Gordy Jr. founded one of the most iconic brands in Detroit, next to Ford and many others. It's a good, perfect tie-in for what Hodge was saying. So without further ado, Robin Terry.
All right, guys, I know that time is ticking, and we're going to do this in about 10 minutes. I just want to say hello to you, to welcome you. I am so humbled, Creed, that you would invite me to be a part of the panel you had today. I hope that the story I'm going to tell you will inspire you. I hope it will connect the dots for everything that you have heard today, not only from Hodge, from Karen, from Ken, but connect all those dots so that you understand the true greatness that you have in you and the opportunity that you have. How many of you would consider yourselves creative? All right, then I'm talking to the right people. So I believe that creative people, not only everything that you've seen here, you see the power that you have to interpret our culture, to drive our culture, and to shape culture. That's the power you have because you're a creative being. So the story I'm going to tell you is a story that's right here in your backyard about a creative person who did exactly what I'm telling you you have the power to do. And that person happens to be my uncle, who is Berry Gordy. How many of you know who he is? Awesome. How many of you know what Motown is? All right, you're in Detroit. That's awesome. Okay, so here's the quick story of my uncle. And I'm going to start with this. My dad has a quote, and my dad says, if you don't know the strength you come from, you won't believe the strength you have. And so I'm telling you this story because I want you to know the strength you come from, right here in the city, in your neighborhood, right up the street. That's what this story is about. So Berry Gordy, young gentleman, he was in his early 20s, his talent was being a songwriter. So many of you have been asked today about your creative ability. What is it that you're good at? And once you tap into that, how do you fight for that thing that you're good at? So for my uncle, his thing was songwriting. He could write. And so he convinced our family to give him a loan of $800 to start his own little record company. Now, contrary to what most people would tell you, my uncle didn't finish school. He didn't go to college. But he had this passion for songwriting. And so he started writing songs, convinced the family, give him this money for this little house, and then he started attracting other people who were creative like he was, just like you. He found other songwriters, musicians, people who were good at playing instruments. He found people who were good engineers, sound recording engineers. All these different folks start gravitating to this little house on West Grand Boulevard. Have you seen it? Little blue and white house? Okay, so they start coming to that little house because they all shared a love for creating music. So after a while, they're creating this music. Now they need singers. Where do you think they got them from? Within a 5-mile radius of where we're sitting right now. So that Northwestern High School, yes, churches. So they came out of the schools, but the average age of the people that came was 23. So you had people like yourself, young people like yourselves, a Stevie Wonder. Guess how old he was? 9. Right? Michael Jackson, do we know who he is? He was just a baby. The Supremes, we know who they are. They were seniors in high school. How many of you are seniors in high school? Right? So they are your age, but they gravitated to other creative people who had a common goal, just like them, to make music. And something really powerful happened when you put all these creative people together in that itty-bitty house up the street from where we're standing. History was made. Not only did they interpret culture, which is what we talked about, with the music that they made, but they also started to drive culture because it became this force. Like, first of all, well, we'll talk about how it became a phenomenon, but it became this music everybody was listening to. So suddenly, this little company in Detroit, everybody wanted to hear that music. And then they started shaping culture because all of a sudden, people who didn't look alike were singing and dancing together, black people and white people, because of this music. All that came out of this little bitty house in Detroit because of one man. And then this collective family of creative people. So I just want to remind you, Motown then became what was a global phenomenon. It produced more #1 records than any record company on the planet. It had more iconic artists than any record label on the planet. It was the little black company that everybody undervalued, underestimated, and they sort of rose up to be the beast, right? So don't worry if people underestimate you. Nothing wrong with that. You just show up and you show out, right? That's the example that Motown gave you. But then it became also, this cultural thing that people couldn't figure out. Like, how is it that it brings people from all over the world who don't even speak the same language, don't look alike, but this music brings them together? So there was power in this, and it had the ability to shape culture. And today, it's made history. So it is now an important part of the story we tell about not only music history, but just our American history, and how that was accomplished by one person who was super passionate about that talent they had, that vision that they had. They knew how to surround themselves with other people who were like-minded, and they created something that was extremely powerful, and something that today, 60 years later, still has relevance, is still sampled. I have 2 volunteers somewhere, and I just want them to come right over here really quickly. So the lesson I want you to get from it is to find your place in that creative space. You've heard a lot of people talk today about, you're trying to think, like, what are they doing? I want to test my theory, right, that 60 years later, there's still relevance. And this is how creative people, what do? They interpret culture, they drive culture, they shape culture, and they can make history. Okay, so just introduce yourself.
I'm Olivia Urban from Benjamin Carson High School.
I'm Simone Leith from DSA.
I'm Renee from DSA.
Okay, so you guys come up here. This is a test. You weren't getting out of here without one test. All right, these lovely 3 ladies are going to sing 3 parts, just the top part of a song, and I want to see if you can finish it. All right? And this is how we're going to close out this day. All right? Here we go. They volunteered. You got to give them a lot of love, lot of love. All right, you right, ladies? You ready? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Sing with them if you know it. That was good. That was awesome. All right, I'm giving you one last test. This is one last test. All right, here we go, ladies. And yeah, sing nice and loud. 1, 2, 3, go.
I got sunshine on a cloudy day. With cold outside, I got the month of May.
Give it up for yourselves and our volunteers. That's awesome. So that's 60 years later. So that is not only finding your passion, mastering your passion, building your brand, dominating your space, and being relevant over 60 years later. So that's what I'm hoping that you leave here inspired by everything that you've heard. If you haven't gone to Motown Museum, teachers, please see me. We will figure that out and make arrangements because you need to see it. That's inspiration in your backyard. So I hope that this was helpful to you, and God bless you, and I encourage you as you find your passion.